All right, so get ready because we're diving into something pretty interesting today.
Oh,
Ho'oponopono.
interesting.
You know that Hawaiian practice for healing and problem solving?
Right.
We're going to be taking a look at how people are using it to attract money, recover debts, and even land jobs.
Really?
Yeah, so
I'm intrigued.
it should be interesting.
Yeah, definitely a fascinating concept.
Mm,
Especially when you consider its ancient roots in Hawaiian culture.
yeah,
Traditionally, it was used as a way to restore harmony within families and communities.
mm,
But these days, it seems like it's gaining popularity in the self-help world with this focus on personal transformation and even financial abundance.
exactly. And our source material for today's deep dive is a YouTube video
Okay.
by Law of Attraction coaches Mitesh and Indu Khatri.
Interesting.
They lay out a specific method they call Ho'oponopono for money.
Okay.
So for those of you hearing about Ho'oponopono for the first time,
Okay.
can you give us a little breakdown of the basics?
Oh.
What is this all about?
At its core, Ho'oponopono is all about taking responsibility for your energy and clearing negativity.
Okay.
It often involves repeating phrases like, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you,
Mm,
as a way to release any of those negative emotions or beliefs that might be blocking you.
okay.
The underlying idea is that by clearing your own energy, you can influence your reality.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does this ancient practice translate into something as tangible as money? I mean, are we talking about literally chanting to our wallets here?
Well, not quite.
Okay.
The Katras present this unique approach that goes beyond just focusing on yourself.
Okay.
They believe you need to apply Ho'oponopono to three targets:
Great.
yourself,
Perfect.
the money itself,
Yeah.
and the other person involved in your financial situation.
3 targets.
Yes.
That's interesting. I'm already a little skeptical,
Okay.
but I'm definitely curious to hear more. So, can you give us an example from the video?
Sure. They talk about a businessman who claimed to have recovered a significant sum of money, over 470,000 US dollars, that was owed to him.
Wow.
He practiced Ho'oponopono, not just for himself and the money, but also for the person who owed him the debt.
Okay, so he's directing it towards the person that owes him money.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a pretty bold claim.
It is.
Do they go into detail about how he actually applied the technique?
They don't give us a step-by-step breakdown,
Oh, wait.
but they emphasize the importance of feeling the phrases, not just reciting them mechanically.
Right.
It's about shifting your internal state to one of forgiveness and understanding.
Okay.
They suggest doing this both in dedicated sessions and whenever negative thoughts about the situation arise.
So it's more about cultivating a mindset of abundance and letting go of resentment rather than trying to magically conjure money out of thin air.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting because it starts to overlap with concepts like positive self-talk and the law of attraction. So is it really Ho'oponopono working its magic? Or could it be that this mindset shift led the businessman to take different actions,
Right.
perhaps communicate more effectively, or become more persistent in his efforts to recover the debt?
That's a great point. It
Yeah.
makes you wonder if Ho'oponopono is really the driving force or if it's just acting as a catalyst for other psychological and behavioral changes
Right.
that lead to the desired outcome.
Exactly.
That's a really great point. Before we move on, there's another example from the video that I think is worth mentioning.
Okay, let's hear it.
They talk about a man who successfully landed his old job back with a raise after being laid off.
Oh, wow.
And you guessed it, he attributes his success to diligently practicing Ho'oponopono.
Interesting.
So he's essentially using Ho'oponopono to manifest a specific job back into existence.
That's what he's claiming.
But didn't they say the focus is on forgiveness and clearing negativity?
Right.
How does that apply to a job situation?
That's where that three-target approach comes into play again. He was directing Ho'oponopono towards himself,
Okay.
the job itself,
Okay.
and his former employer.
I see.
So he was covering all the bases.
Okay, now I'm really curious about how you apply this to a job. I mean, do you imagine sitting across from your former boss and showering them with I love yous?
Right.
That seems a bit awkward, to say the least.
I can see how that might be a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Well, they don't explicitly say to do that, but they do suggest customizing the phrases to fit each target.
Okay.
So, for example, he might have focused on releasing any resentment or disappointment he felt towards his former employer and the situation,
Right.
while also affirming his desire to return to the job.
That's a little less weird.
A little bit.
But still a bit out there. Do they suggest specific phrases to use, or is it more about the general intention?
They actually provide some specific phrases, which we'll unpack later.
Okay.
But they also emphasize the importance of feeling the emotions behind the words.
Right.
It's not just about repeating them like a robot. It's about imbuing them with sincerity and a genuine desire to heal and harmonize the situation.
I see. So it's not just a quick fix or a magic spell. It requires effort and a willingness to shift your internal state.
Absolutely.
But even then, how can we be sure that it's Ho'oponopono making the difference? Couldn't it just be a coincidence or good luck?
That's a valid point, and that's exactly what we'll be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll examine the psychological and energetic explanations behind these claims
Okay.
and try to separate fact from fiction.
Sounds good.
We'll also look at the potential role of the placebo effect
Right.
and the power of positive self-talk in manifesting desired outcomes.
All right, I'm really intrigued.
Good.
Sounds like we've got a lot more to unpack.
We do.
So stay tuned, folks, and we'll be right back to delve deeper into the world of Ho'oponopono for money.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome back. So before the break, we were discussing some pretty remarkable claims about Ho'oponopono and its potential to impact our financial lives.
Yeah, and I'm still a little unsure how repeating "I love you" to a pile of bills is supposed to make me rich.
Okay.
But I'm willing to keep an open mind. So let's dive deeper into those psychological and energetic explanations you mentioned.
Okay, so let's start with the psychological aspect.
Okay.
One of the core principles of Ho'oponopono is taking responsibility for your energy. Think about how that might translate to real-life actions. If you're constantly blaming others for your financial woes, you're essentially giving away your power.
Right. It's like that saying, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten.
Precisely. But when you take responsibility, you shift from a victim mentality to a position of empowerment.
Right.
This can lead to positive changes in your behavior. You might become more proactive in seeking opportunities, or you might communicate more effectively with clients or employers.
So it's not necessarily that Ho'oponopono is magically changing external circumstances, but rather that it's prompting you to take different actions.
Right.
That ultimately lead to a different outcome.
That's a possible interpretation, and it's worth considering the placebo effect here.
Okay.
If you genuinely believe that Ho'oponopono will work, that belief itself can become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
Your mindset shifts. You approach situations with more confidence.
Okay.
And as a result, you're more likely to attract positive outcomes.
Oh, okay. I can see how that might work. But what about the energetic side of things? You mentioned that Ho'oponopono is about clearing negativity and aligning with abundance.
Right. And this is where things get a little more esoteric in many spiritual traditions. Money is viewed as a form of energy.
Okay.
It's not about the physical bills themselves, but rather the energy of exchange and value that they represent.
So if you're holding on to negative beliefs about money, like feeling unworthy or associating it with stress and struggle, that could be blocking the flow of abundance into your life.
That's the idea by practicing Ho'oponopono. You're essentially clearing those energetic blockages and creating a more receptive space for financial prosperity.
That's a pretty interesting concept, but it also raises a question. The Khatris talk about applying Ho'oponopono to the money itself. How do you do that if it's just energy?
Okay.
Do you sit there and visualize dollar bills being showered with love?
It might sound a bit odd, but visualization is actually a common technique in many personal development practices.
Okay.
It's about shifting your own energy and intention around money, for example. You might visualize yourself receiving a large sum of money and focus on the feelings of gratitude and abundance that arise.
I see. So it's not about literally talking to money, but rather using visualization and positive affirmations to cultivate a different energy around it.
Exactly. It's about replacing those feelings of scarcity and lack with feelings of abundance and gratitude.
Okay. That makes a bit more sense. But let's not forget about that third target, the other person involved in the financial situation.
Right.
How does Ho'oponopono supposedly work when it comes to relationships, particularly those that involve money?
Well, think about it this way. When you're harboring resentment or anger towards someone, whether it's a client who hasn't paid you or a former employer who laid you off, that negativity is creating an energetic barrier between you.
Yeah, it's like carrying around a heavy weight.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that weight can prevent you from moving forward and attracting positive experiences. By applying Ho'oponopono to that relationship, you're essentially seeking to release those negative emotions and create a more harmonious dynamic.
So instead of dwelling on blame and anger, you're shifting your focus to forgiveness and understanding.
Exactly. Now, this doesn't mean condoning any wrongdoing or letting people walk all over you.
Right.
It's about releasing your own negativity
Yeah.
so that you can move forward with clarity and peace of mind.
I see. It's about taking back your power, not in a controlling way,
Exactly.
but in a way that allows you to release what no longer serves you.
That's a great way to put it. And it's important to note that this doesn't necessarily mean the other person will change their behavior or suddenly become your best friend. But by shifting your own energy and perspective,
Okay.
you're creating a more positive space for resolution and healing.
This is fascinating stuff, but let's be honest, there are always skeptics out there who might say it's all just a bunch of wishful thinking.
Right.
How do we address those concerns?
That's a fair point. And as with any personal development technique, there's no guarantee that Ho'oponopono will work for everyone.
Right.
It's not a magic bullet.
Yeah.
And it's certainly possible that some of the success stories attributed to Ho'oponopono could be explained by other factors,
Right.
like coincidence or simply being in the right place at the right time.
So how do we separate the wheat from the chaff? How can our listeners discern whether Ho'oponopono is worth trying?
I think it's important to approach it with a healthy dose of skepticism and a willingness to experiment. If you're intrigued by the concepts we've discussed, why not give it a try?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in trying things for yourself. Experience is the best teacher after all.
Absolutely.
But where do you even begin?
Well, the Khatris do offer some specific guidance, including tailored phrases for different situations.
Okay.
But before we delve into those practical applications, I think it's worth taking a moment to reflect on what resonates with you most from what we've discussed so far.
That's a great idea. Let's pause here for a moment and give our listeners a chance to absorb all this information in the next part of our deep dive. We'll explore the specific techniques and phrases that Khatris recommend for applying Ho'oponopono to your own financial goals.
Okay.
We'll also share some tips for incorporating this practice into your daily life. Okay, so we've talked about the theory behind Ho'oponopono and all the potential psychological and energetic mechanisms, but how do we actually use this?
Well, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
The Khatris offer some pretty intriguing examples of how people have applied Ho'oponopono for specific financial goals.
Give me one that really stood out.
Okay, well, they shared the story of a guy struggling to get clients to pay their invoices. You know, that frustrating feeling when you've done the work, but the money's just not coming in?
Oh, yeah, I think we've all been there.
So what's his strategy?
He followed that three-pronged approach we talked about, targeting himself, the money, and each individual client who owed him money.
So it's not just like lumping all your clients together, you're addressing each one individually.
Exactly. And the phrases he used were really specific, too. He'd repeat things like, "I'm sorry, client's name. Please forgive me. Thank you for giving me the business. I love you."
It's almost like he's preemptively forgiving them for any wrongdoing.
Right.
Which could be incredibly powerful for letting go of resentment.
It's about shifting from a place of blame and frustration to a place of understanding and compassion.
Right. And by saying, thank you for giving me the business, he's affirming the outcome he wants, even though it hasn't happened yet.
Exactly.
Did they mention how often he practiced this?
They said he did dedicated sessions twice a day, and then also whenever those negative thoughts about his clients popped up.
So it's about integrating it into your daily life. Exactly.
It's about creating a new habit of responding to challenges with forgiveness and understanding, rather than getting caught up in those same old patterns of negativity.
I'm starting to see how this could be really powerful, but I'm curious, how does this apply to situations where it's not necessarily about recovering money, but attracting new opportunities?
Well, remember Indu Khatri's experience with the webinar?
Oh, yeah?
She claimed that by silently chanting Ho'oponopono while looking at the attendees on the screen, she saw a 5% sales conversion.
So she's applying it to a group of people to influence their buying decisions.
That's the implication, is like she's energetically clearing any blocks they might have.
It does make you wonder about all the potential applications, beyond personal finances. Could you use it in marketing negotiations or even conflict resolution?
Now you're thinking outside the box, and that's what's so exciting about exploring these concepts. It challenges us to consider new possibilities.
So for our listeners who are ready to try Ho'oponopono, what are the key takeaways? Where do they even begin? Okay, first, identify a specific financial goal you want to work on. Could be attracting more money in general, securing a raise, landing that dream job.
Right.
Then apply that three-target approach and tailor the phrases to each situation.
So you're not just chanting generic mantras, you're making it personal.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about the words themselves, but the feeling behind them. Approach it with sincerity. a willingness to forgive, and a desire to harmonize your energy with abundance.
And if you're feeling a little skeptical, treat it as an experiment.
Yeah.
Set a clear intention practice consistently for a certain amount of time and see what happens. You might be surprised by the results, or at the very least, you'll gain some valuable insights into your own mind and energy.
I think that's the beauty of a deep dive like this.
Yeah.
It's not about blindly accepting or rejecting new ideas, but engaging with them curiously and openly,
Exactly.
expanding our awareness,
Yeah.
challenging our assumptions about what's possible.
Well said. So to our listeners, we'll leave you with this final thought-provoking question. If you were to experiment with Ho'oponopono for a financial goal, what situation would you choose, and how would you customize the phrases to make them resonate with your specific needs? We encourage you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments, and until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into